Good evening, all of you. Yes, so today the open session for your GS2 paper is going on, and the last section that is left, I guess, is the IR section. So we will be taking up the discussion on the IR section. Now, did you all go through the question paper? Have you seen through the questions that were asked? Yes. So what is your first perception? What is your perception? Yes, so what is your perception? How did you feel that the questions were attemptable? Did you find the questions were difficult? Yes. What was it? Huh? Current affairs based. Yes, this is one common idea that we get, that the questions were from current affairs. Now, Acha, tell me one thing. When you looked at the question, did you feel that, what was your idea? That just by studying current affairs, would it be sufficient to go about writing these answers? Yes. Yes, yes, generally the idea that I get, even in my class, students would tell me that their seniors have informed them that, ma'am, just maybe current affairs is sufficient, because IR is a current oriented subject. So maybe since we are caught up in this paucity of time, there's so much to study and so little time that we find, wouldn't it be sufficient if we just indulged in the discussion, or we just referred to the current affairs? Yes, the questions more or less come from current affairs, so would it be sufficient? Let me tell you that what current affairs does is indicates the areas from which a question might be asked. Yes. For instance, this year when the question was asked on the Sri Lankan economic crisis and role of India, it seems that it is completely a current affairs based question. It relates to the crisis and the role played by India. But then the preceding statement tells you that India is an age-old friend. So there you need some bit of study of Sri Lanka. Also, if you just write an answer on the factual content of the economic crisis, what is this economic crisis, why this crisis, and what is the help provided by India, you'll get marks. You'll get 4 or 5 marks. Yes, but beyond that, if you want to secure really good marks, like, there is a possibility where you can secure marks like 7, yes, out of 10. And if you write exceedingly well, yes, you also have the dexterity of writing answers, there's a possibility you can also go up till 7.5. And a 6.5 to 7.5 can be easily touched upon if you have some background of the subject and you know how to structure your questions and how do you structure your answers. Appropriate structuring of the answers to the question asked. Yes, if you are able to attempt a comprehensive answer to the question asked. Yes, so that is one idea that I would like to emphasize. Do not do this mistake. Studying IR from the theoretical perspective or from the background perspective would not take as much time. There will be much greater returns. Also, today IR is asked as far as your prelims examination is concerned. Yes, so it is the pattern varies. Yes, there were years in between when they have asked 8 to 10 questions from IR in the prelim section. If you take the world geographical mapping question, and I just say Maghreb region represents which mountain? So Maghreb is the word from international relation and it denotes northwestern Africa. Yes, so it denotes, it represents the Atlas Mountains. Yes, so basically in that context you need to have some theoretical background. Of course, current affairs you will be focusing upon, but there is need of some basic background to understand interrelations. What is more important is understanding interrelations between countries. How do one country affect another two countries' dynamics? Yes, so that has to be understood. Fine. Having said that, let us begin with the discussion. Yes, the first question that we are taking up, yes, and UPSC has continued to stick to the format as far as international relations questions is concerned. They've asked four questions. Yes, that has been the pattern for past 3-4 years now. 2 15 markers and 2 10 markers. That is what they generally ask. So that they have stuck to even in this year. Fine. So the first question that they have asked on IR is, India is an age-old friend of Sri Lanka. Yes. Discuss India's role in the recent crisis in Sri Lanka in the light of the preceding statement. Yes. So this is a 10 marker that they have asked. Yes. How do you go about writing answer to this question? Also, always as a thumb rule. Yes, always as a thumb rule, whenever a question begins with a statement, whenever in whichever subject, be it optional, be it GS, be it anywhere, whenever a question begins with a statement, you introduce through that statement. Yes, and how do you introduce through that statement? You will always substantiate. You will always substantiate the statement. Yes, this is what you'll do. Yes, so you will substantiate that statement. And how do you substantiate a statement? Yes, you give facts supporting that statement. So you give evidences or facts supporting that statement as well as reasons. Yes, now this is very, very important. Do not simply substantiate a statement by mere facts. Whenever possible, also give reasons. Yes, try and have both these elements, but of course, you cannot be sure that always you will have both these elements. You will have both facts as well as reason to substantiate. So in case you do not have, resort to either one, but when you have, at least try and bring in both the elements. Yes, it is important because UPSC does not want to test your rote memory. Yes, they do not want to test your rote learning capabilities. Regurgitation of fact is not what they are seeking from you. What rather they seek is maybe also the analysis part. Yes, and for that, reasons becomes very important. So one way to introduce is always substantiating the statement when the question begins with a statement. Yes, the another thumb rule, when you are trying to introduce a question, introduce the answer to the question that has been asked, always, if possible, write context to it. Generally, हम क्या करते हैं? If there is a word, particular keyword, we try and define that word. That is a decent enough approach. But if possible, whenever it is possible, it is always more desirable when you bring out the context. It gives a much positive image of you that yes, a student is well versed with the subject so much so that he is able to understand from where exactly the question has been asked, in what context. Yes, so it is desirable to introduce with a context. Now, anyways, coming back to this question, the question reads, India is an age-old friend of Sri Lanka. Yes, so how will you, what will be your evidences, what will be your reasons? If you must have studied, yes, you have been preparing for UPSC, I guess, for past 1 year around. Yeah, you are just new students. थोड़ा सा prepare किया है आपने, थोड़ा सा IR पढ़ा है. So can you tell me what can be, just to make the class interactive, can you tell me what can be the evidences or what can be the reasons India is an age-old friend of Sri Lanka? Okay, fine. So that the Tamil element is there. That one of the reasons. Fine. What else? Fine. Neighborhood first policy. Fine. What else? Huh? Cultural link. Fine. Of Buddhism. What else? Huh? Okay, that is the nature of assistance that we have. So that becomes the evidence probably of that we have been friends, age-old friends with Sri Lanka. Now give me first evidence. Let me talk about the evidence. What evidence? Huh? सिविल वॉर में हमने श्रीलंका को सपोर्ट किया था. फाइन. सो वी सपोर्टेड श्रीलंकन गवर्नमेंट अगेंस्ट द LTTE. Fine, that is one of the evidence. See, here first let us understand what it is saying. Age old friend. Who is a friend? Friend. A friend in need is a friend indeed. Yes. So we have to give evidences saying when it was required of them, as during the civil war. Yes, when it was required of them, we came out with the assistance. Yes, so we will give one or two evidences because, of course, remember it is a 10 mark and this is just the introduction. Yes, so we will give one or two evidences there. Maybe if you would have studied it in detail, we say it was during the 4th Elam War. India's, and that was the last part of the civil war that was waged. So it is said that it was the 4th Elam War in which India's support in terms of sharing intelligence was critical to the victory of Sri Lanka. Had it not been for India sharing its intelligence, Sri Lanka would not have won that war. Yes, so that is one assistance that we provided. Then another very common assistance is with respect to the 2004 tsunami. Yes, so India was one of the first respondents. Yeah, in fact, India was the first respondent during the 2004 tsunami. Within hours, India had sent its Air Force and Navy to provide humanitarian assistance to the island nation. Yes, so these are the two evidences that we have given. Here also it says age-old friend. So maybe we will talk about the relations being 2500 years old. Yes, with cultural religious ties between the two. Fine. So we will start from there, that the relation between these two countries and a Buddhist connect hai. In fact, the earliest mention dates back to Ramayana. Yes, we cannot mention all that because once again there is constraint of time and space. So what we'll say that the relation dates back 2500 years and there is a cultural religious connect between the two countries, and India has in fact come out in support of Sri Lanka whenever the need arose. For instance, during the 2004 tsunami, India came out in support of Sri Lanka. Yes, being the first respondent to the humanitarian crisis that unfolded there, and also India's support to Sri Lanka during the 4th Elam War was critical in its victory against the LTTE. Fine, so we have given the evidence. Now, what is the reason? All of you have given me several reasons. Yes, neighborhood first policy and likes. Yes, but what is the most critical reason why we in fact come out in support of Sri Lanka is Sri Lanka's geostrategic significance. Sri Lanka is very, very important to India. Yes, Sri Lanka is very, very critically important to India. Why? Because it is located in proximity to India and it straddles the sea lanes of communication, the very important sea lanes of communication through which 80 to 90% of India's trade and energy imports takes place. Therefore, yes, we are very eager to reach out to help Sri Lanka. Because of the geostrategic significance and the cultural ties, India has always served as a friend to Sri Lanka. Yes, then you will continue. Then the question begins. है ना? अभी question अब शुरू हो रहा है. So what is the question that is asked? Discuss India's role in the recent crisis in Sri Lanka. Yes, in the light of the preceding statement. Fine. So we anyways, had it not been even for this in the light of the preceding statement, we have to of course discuss this question in light of the statement. So we have to continue on the lines that yes, India continues to be a friend to Sri Lanka even during the recent economic crisis. which is unprecedented in Sri Lankan history. It is the biggest economic crisis that Sri Lanka has faced as an independent country. Yes, and you will give certain, once again, the question is about role of India. Yes, the question is about role of India. But should we limit ourselves to discussion on simply the role of India? Should we? है ना? The question is simply 10-marker question, which in fact says, है ना, India is an age-old free and discuss India's role in the recent crisis. So the question directly is asking you only one question. There is only one part to the question that they are asking, that is discuss role of India in this crisis. So should we directly start from the role of India, or we have to give some background? Yes, some background has to be given. Now see, now that is your dexterity, I tell you, because introduction maybe we are giving evidence and reason. Yes, here also, before explaining India's role, we will tell what is the crisis, why this crisis, and then we will get into India's role. So the first four parts that we are talking about, यहाँ के दोनों part और वहाँ का, the existing crisis that we are explaining and the reason for the crisis that we'll explain has to be in fewer words. Anna, so with answer writing practice, this is why test series becomes important in general. Answer writing practice becomes very important in general, because whatever information you have to present that information in crisp, precise language in the given amount of time and the given space. Yes, for that answer writing practice, so that you're able to express your ideas in fewer words. Yes. So here once again we will talk about the recent crisis. So in recent crisis we are going to we will give some evidence, है ना? Tell the magnitude of the crisis, है ना? We have to build a background. So we will talk about the magnitude of the crisis and the reason for the same. Yes, and then we will get into India's role. Yes, everybody is following me? No doubts? Yes, so what is the magnitude of the crisis? It is unprecedented in nature, and this is the biggest economic crisis that Sri Lanka has faced since its independence. Today, the external debt buildup is of $51 billion, of which even Sri Lanka is unable to service the interest. They are unable to pay even the interest on the loan that has been built up. Yes, the forex reserves have crushed. Yes, they have crumbled down by 99%. And there is a decline of the forex by 99%. There is soaring inflation. Yes, and the currency has collapsed. Yes, there is severe depreciation of the Sri Lankan currency. So we have said, in few words, we have no facts, not too many facts, but yes, we've explained the ongoing economic crisis. What is the reason for this crisis? Gross economic mismanagement, corruption, yes, accompanied by decline in tourism because of COVID-19 and the collateral effect of the Ukrainian crisis, jahan pe already oil prices and food prices are rising in the world because of the Ukrainian crisis, hai na, war in Ukraine. Yes, and yahan pe especially what is in news? The gross economic management we have to explain. And what is the particular reason? Why do we cite gross economic mismanagement? Wrong policies, agricultural policies, and wahan pe they have all of a sudden banning of the chemical fertilizers and pesticides imports, that, and then China ka death hai, that we'll talk. But here abhi the reason for the crisis, reason unka khud ka gross economic mismanagement hai. Yes, so it is such wrong policies, such as with respect to sudden banning of the chemical fertilizers. Yes, and they undertaking tax cuts when the government was in dire need of revenue. The biggest, once again, the Gotabaya Rajapaksa government undertook the biggest tax cuts in the independent history of Sri Lanka in such a dire situation. So, of course, the forex and the fiscal reserves have collapsed. So, there is So there is this crisis which has built up, and it is in this crisis India has once again through $5 billion loan. अब इसको ज़्यादा explain करना है क्योंकि question क्या है? Role of India. So in clear sub points you will mention the role played by India. Yes. So as far as role played by India, first and foremost that we have provided an assistance of $5 billion. Yes, which is serving as a lifeline to survival of the Sri Lankan economy, and this $5 billion is in the form of LOC, grants and assistance, currency swap. Yes. What else? We have also deferred loan payment. Yes, deferred loan repayment. So this has been the assistance which has enabled it to survive. It is the lifeline which is ensuring that there is not complete bankruptcy. It does not completely collapse. Yes, so it ensures the survival of Sri Lankan economy. What else? Yes, very, very important. We have extended aid in terms of, if you remember this figure, because it is quite important, 44,000 metric tons of urea as well as 16,000 metric tons of rice. And urea yaad rakhna would have been sufficient. If you remember the numbers, well and good. If you do not remember, it is also fine. We can just say that India has provided substantial aid in terms of urea and rice and other essentials. And we have also provided aid in terms of vegetable, wheat, drugs and medicines. Yes, so this has been the assistance that we have extended during the recent crisis. What else? And also one very important thing that Indian government did during this crisis was India negotiated or put forth the case of Sri Lanka in IMF. Yes, so India supported the Sri Lankan case in IMF, so much so that India took up the Sri Lankan case in IMF much before Sri Lanka itself took up the case in IMF. Yes, so before Sri Lanka itself approached IMF, India had approached IMF on Sri Lanka's behalf. Yes, so this also tells you that yes, it is eager to help Sri Lanka out in this time of crisis. So this has been the very critical role played by India in ensuring the survival of Sri Lanka. Yes. Yes, so this is the role played. Now, how would you conclude? Are these parts sufficient for the discussion? है ना, उससे ज़्यादा आप discuss नहीं कर सकते, और ये जो parts हमने discuss किए वो essential है. There is nothing that we are just discussing for the sake of discussing. All these parts need to be part of your answer, and if they are part of your answer, you will get good marks. Yes, you will get the marks which you want to make that difference and ensure that somewhere you have decent score to make it to the list. Yes, therefore answer writing practice and this structuralization becomes so very important. Yes, now what will be the conclusion? What will be the conclusion? Here we can bring in the element of China, because otherwise we have not got a scope, so much scope to bring in China. So here maybe we can bring in China, whereby we can once again emphasize that India follows two-pronged approach to Sri Lanka. Our foreign policy vis-a-vis Sri Lanka comprises two pillars. Yes, so one of the pillars is that is driven by geostrategic consideration, where we believe that since Sri Lanka is very, very important, strategically important, we cannot allow hostile external influences to be present in Sri Lanka. Yes, so it is in this context we can say that India reaching out to Sri Lanka in times of crisis will ensure that other players like China's scope of influence resides, yes, comes down in Sri Lanka. And presently what has happened, because of India providing eager aid to Sri Lanka, there has been a lot of goodwill towards India in Sri Lanka. Yes, a pro-India opinion amongst the people of Sri Lanka. In fact, Sri Lanka also has said that India is a relation, whereas you find India is like a brother, whereas China is an economic partner. Yes, it is only when India plays such a role that India can maintain its sphere of influence in Sri Lanka. Yes, soft power increases. And in fact, soft power, uh, of course, increases, but the biggest gain is strategic gain. Yes, this region, the entire South Asia and Indian Ocean region, happens to be India's sphere of influence. Yes, so we do not want other countries to increase their presence in this region. And especially, we find that today China is doing that. So it is in this context, it has become all the more essential for India to ensure that it is present. Yes, and one way to ensure, and in IR we studied the way to ensure your presence in a foreign country, because that foreign country is a sovereign nation. It is free to pursue its foreign policy, its international relations with whosoever it likes. We cannot bind it to pursue relations only with us, prioritize us. We cannot do that. Yes, the way to get that done is by being present. When you are present already there, you reduce the scope for others to become present, to come and enter that country. So the way to guard your sphere of influence is by being present in times of need of those countries. Yes, thereby reducing the scope of other foreign powers to enter that area or that country. Yes, so that is what we are going to say here. Yes, so we will conclude that given the geostrategic significance, India's foreign policy says that one of the important goals of India's foreign policy vis-a-vis Sri Lanka is to ensure that Sri Lanka remains free of hostile external influences. Yes, and this can be secured through such actions, through such role played by India in during times of crisis in the island nation. Yes, fine. So with that, we can go about explaining this answer holistically. This will be the way in which you will deal with the answer. And please remember, one of the common mistakes which all students do is they do not, whenever there is a statement, they do not substantiate that statement. That would be one of the biggest mistakes. And introduction aapne automatically lose out kar diya. Yes, so your answer always comprises introduction, body and conclusion. Now if it is a 10 marker, you try and write the introduction and conclusion. Jitna chota ho sake aap utna chota likhoge, hai na? The emphasis has to be on the body. And also remember, though the question is just the role, but if you would have just written the role of India in this answer and come back home, you would have not got more than 3.5 for maximum 4 marks. Yes, so you lose out those important points just because you did not know how to write the answer. Yes, and therefore revision, re-revision and writing practice, answer writing practice is critical as far as UPSC is concerned. Fine. Fine. So this is any doubts? Yes, we can proceed further. Yes, very, very true. And if you want to become, he's saying, if you want to become a global power, first you have to become a regional power. Yes. And how do you become a regional power? By having a large sphere of influence. So yes, if India has global power ambitions, then first it has to strive to be present within South Asia. Yes, it has to emerge as the leader of South Asia. And you cannot coerce yourself to become a leader. You have to be accepted by the people. And how do you gain this acceptance? When you help them in times of crisis. Yes, so of course you can write that conclusion as well. Which theory? Necklace of diamonds. Where would you write? See, you can mention you are not wrong. ठीक है, Indo-Pacific का Indian Ocean हिस्सा है, and today in fact for India, as far as India is concerned, Indian Ocean is very, very important because China has increased a lot of its focus on Indian Ocean through its BRI initiative. And to counter Chinese string of pearls, we have what is known as necklace of diamond. Yes, and in that context, Sri Lanka becomes important. You can mention that, but I don't say you cannot, but you will have to see how much scope do you have, because it is a 10 marker. Already we have 4 or 5 parts to the answer. So Precisely, if you can incorporate those terms, well and good. Yes? Fine. Moving on to the next question. Moving on to the next question. The 10th question, it reads, do you think that BIMSTEC is a parallel organization like SARC? Do you think that BIMSTEC is a organization like SARC? Yes. What are the similarities and dissimilarities between the two? How are Indian foreign policy objectives realized? How are Indian foreign policy objectives realized by forming this new organization? Yes, it is once again a 10 marker. Yes. How do you go about writing? Now, this question already, in the previous question, there was only one part which was directly asked. Here you find that there are several subparts which they are already asking you. Yes. So what are they telling you? Do you think that BIMSTEC is a parallel organization to SARC? Yes. Are they similar? Can BIMSTEC be an alternative to SARC? That is what they are trying to imply. Yes. What are the similarities and dissimilarities? Yes. Then how are India's foreign policy objectives realized by forming this new organization? So foreign policy objective through BIMSTEC new organization किसको का मतलब क्या है? BIMSTEC. Yes, it refers to BIMSTEC. Yes. So there is one part saying that is BIMSTEC an alternative to SARC? What are the similarities? What are the dissimilarities? Yes. And how are India's foreign policy objectives realized by forming of BIMSTEC? Yes. First, how will you introduce this? How will you introduce this? By defining BIMSTEC and SARC in a line. Fine. Fine. Yes. Most of the South Asian countries, which Myanmar is a Southeast Asian country. So with respect to BIMSTEC, you're telling me. First, you tell me the introduction. What will be the introduction to this question? He told me that the introduction can be, in a sentence, we talk about SARC and BIMSTEC. Foreign policy objectives. Fine. The way he introduced, he said define it, but then he actually compared it, saying that this is a regional organization, that is an economic and technical organization. So that is also acceptable. Okay, that is an acceptable way. Basically, when you are talking about two organizations, it is not कोई सिर्फ BIMSTEC की बात नहीं हो रही या सिर्फ SARC की बात नहीं हो रही. We are talking about two organizations, BIMSTEC and SARC, and basically the question is about their comparison itself. So whenever two organizations spoken from a perspective of comparison, so you will also introduce by comparing them. Yes. So one way to go ahead with the introduction, I would say yours is also fine. He said that both are important. So you are once again comparing. Both are important to achieving foreign policy objective. One comprises South Asian countries, another members from both countries. But see, I would want to conserve that point that here only South Asian members are present, there Southeast Asian members are present, because I want them in my dissimilarities. That also has to be kept in mind. Here also, what he said, what point he gave me, it is an this is a SARC is a regional organization. BIMSTEC is an economic and technical organization. That also I want to conserve. Dissimilarities, comparison, direct question है. वहाँ पे मुझे चाहिए ना ये points पे. Otherwise, I would not be able to come out with so many points as well. So, as I told you, a better way to introducing, we will be comparing. That is essential. We can also, as I told you, introduce through context. This question can be easily introduced through context. Yes, this question arises if you have been studying, if you have studied SARC and BIMSTEC, you know the areas from which the questions might be asked. One is reasons for failure of SARC, a very prominent, है ना. फिर achievements and failures of BIMSTEC, and another very prominent area from which we expect question is generally this comparison. That is BIMSTEC an alternative to SARC? Yes. This is the prominent debate that has been going on, especially since 2019. Yes, when during the second COM swearing in ceremony, yes, of PM Modi, he invited the BIMSTEC leaders rather than the SARC leaders who were invited during the first swearing in ceremony. Since then, this debate has been going on. Yes, so I will introduce it in that context. Yes, so I'll introduce it by saying, and why this shift in focus is happening from SARC to BIMSTEC. Why? रोल इन फेलियर ऑफ सार्क एंड प्रीडोमिनेंटली अभी उरी अटैक जो हुआ था उसके बाद कैंसलेशन. इंडिया सेड दैट वी विल नॉट पार्टिसिपेट इन दिस समिट व्हिच वाज टू बी हेल्ड इन इस्लामाबाद. Yes, so indefinite cancellation of the summit had taken place. Yes, the 19th SARC summit, 2014 was the last SARC summit. Since then, no SARC summit has been held. Yes, so there is, because of this, you find that we talk about this shift. There is another context why this was in news, why these organizations were in news. Yes, BIMSTEC summit was held, not meeting. Yes, there's a lot of difference. Now what we emphasize, summit क्या होता है? Head of government, head of state मिलते हैं, leaders of the countries meet. Meeting between foreign ministers, foreign secretaries and likes. Fine. So the point is that fifth, एक तरफ क्या है? एक तरफ there is SARC, whose last summit was held in 2014. Yes, and it has been inactive since 2016. Yes, especially because of this deadlock in the bilateral ties between India and Pakistan. Yes, on one side you have such a SARC, on the other hand you have BIMSTEC. Yes, which had recently organized its summit. Yes, its fifth summit was held to mark the 25th anniversary of establishment of BIMSTEC. Yes, and if you know, in the fifth summit, BIMSTEC summit, BIMSTEC charter was adopted, which is a very important development. Yes, so charter was adopted. They have institutionalized BIMSTEC, saying that the BIMSTEC meetings will be held every 2 years. Yes, so you find that there is this striking contrast. On one hand, you have SARC, which has been inactive since 2016. On the other hand, we have BIMSTEC, whose fifth summit was held in 2022, under which the BIMSTEC charter was adopted, through which they have tried to institutionalize, or they have institutionalized BIMSTEC. They have institutionalized the BIMSTEC summits. Yes, so you can begin there. So this is also a comparison, decent enough comparison. I am not eating away points from the rest of my discussion, and I am saying that SARC, which has been inactive since 2016, stands in contrast to BIMSTEC, whose fifth summit was held recently, yes, to mark the 25th anniversary, in which the BIMSTEC charter was adopted, yes, which leading to institutionalization of BIMSTEC. And it is in this context, there is the ongoing debate that whether BIMSTEC is an alternative to SARC. Yes. So I have introduced. I'll now say that, see, there are several parts and it is a 10 marker question only. Yes. So with this, I've given a brief introduction, a good introduction, solid introduction. Now I am going to say that it seems that SARC and BIMSTECs are parallel to one another, are parallel organizations. But then there exists several dissimilarities as well. Yes. So then I will talk about my introduction, and I have somewhere answered the first part. Is it an alternative? So I've set the tone. Is it an alternative to it? I cannot give the answer in the very beginning कि yes, it is an alternative. वो तो मैं नहीं कर सकती ना, चाहे question ऐसा है, but can I conclude? है ना, नहीं कर सकते. So I'll say that yes, it seems that it is a parallel organization, but then there are glaring dissimilarities. Yes. Then I will move on to my second part of the answer, where I am going to talk about first similarities. What are the parallels? या तो आप similarities use कर लो क्योंकि word used है ना. We want to use the terms and phrases from the question itself. Yes. So we have already used this term parallel. So next I might just use similarities between the two. So I'll give a subhead as similarities between the two organizations and I'll list down the similarities. क्या है similarities? तो इससे मोस्ट ऑफ द मेंबर्स आर सेम लिख सकते हो, लेकिन इससे अच्छे वर्ड्स हैं कि ओवरलैपिंग, दे रिप्रेजेंट ओवरलैपिंग रीजन्स. तो इसका ऑटोमेटिक मतलब हो गया मेंबर्स, क्योंकि मेंबर्स में डिसिमिलैरिटी में लिखने को है ना. आई वांट दैट मेंबरशिप वाला पॉइंट, अदरवाइज यू कैन राइट इट हियर, नो प्रॉब्लम. नाउ आई हैव कम प्रिपेयर्ड फ्रॉम होम, सो I can come out with these points such as overlapping regions. They represent overlapping regions. Yes. Then what are the other similarities? What? Both have been, security se zyada both have been created for primarily economic cooperation. Yes. So in fact, yes, you can talk about under aims and objectives. You can say that both have similar aims and objectives. Both seek economic cooperation between the member countries. Both seek prosperity of the region they represent through active cooperation amongst the member countries. So basically both are seeking economic integration and prosperity of the region through cooperation between the member countries. Yes, the objectives are similar. Yes, what else? Sharing maritime and territorial boundary. किस कंटेक्स्ट में? देखो, इसमें ये बोलना है अभी ये लॉजिकल है क्योंकि मेंबर कंट्रीज ज्यादा सेम ही है ना. 5 साउथ एशियन कंट्रीज आर हियर और वहाँ पे 3 साउथ एशियन कंट्रीज हैव बीन रिप्लेस्ड बाय म्यांमार एंड थाईलैंड, है ना, इन बिम्स्टेक. सो व्हाट वी विल से रादर दैट दे रिप्रेजेंट, क्योंकि जनरली व्हेनेवर वी स्टडी बिम्स्टेक, especially when we study BIMSTEC, we talk about regional profile. There is this point on regional profile. So we will say both of their regional profiles. Both these organizations represent similar regional profile. Yes. Yes, neighborhood first policy में दोनों पे emphasis है for that matter. Yes, neighborhood first policy में दोनों पे emphasis है. वहाँ पे see, if you know, in fact यहाँ पे दूसरा क्या question है, how will it help India in achieving its foreign policy objectives? तो वहाँ पे हम लिखेंगे कि it will be both help, yeah, BIMSTEC helps in achieving neighborhood first policy as well as Act East policy, and that is a statement by PM Modi. So we'll mention that. So anyways, I was talking about the regional profile. So you will say that both regional profile में क्या आता है? Total population and total economy, है ना, in terms of GDP. Yes, the cumulative GDP and the cumulative population. So they are more or less the same. Yes, that can be logically inferred. Now I have to write a point, so I'll say that the regional profiles represented by both these organizations are in fact similar. Yes, I don't need the data, I don't need the facts, I can just say that yes, they represent similar regional profile in terms of the total population and total economic size of the grouping. Fine. So these are my similarities. Beyond that, what are my dissimilarities? First is with respect to the membership itself. Yes. So in fact, SARC represents 8 South Asian countries, whereas BIMSTEC is 5+2 grouping. Yes, it is a 5+2 grouping. 5 South Asian countries, 2 Southeast Asian countries. Yes. Second would be SARC is a representation or is a regional organization, whereas BIMSTEC is an inter-regional organization. Yes. What else? Yes, what he had said, है ना? BIMSTEC is said to be representative of sectoral cooperation. Its way to function is through sectoral cooperation. And they've identified sectors in which they undertake cooperation. What else? See, that once again will become part of the conclusion if you want to write. Yes. So that will become part of the conclusion. We are once again trying to say which one is better than the other. But here the question is not, dissimilarities is not a question about which one is better. We are just trying to bring out the differences. Yes. Yes, very true. You will mention. अब इसमें हम क्या कर रहे हैं? हम ये नहीं कह रहे कि this organization is the privileged one, but we are stating a fact. We are not trying to give our opinion, but this is a fact that when it comes to SARC, there is lack of cohesion amongst the member countries. Distrust prevails amongst the member countries. Yes. So with respect to SARC, there is distrust between member countries, and when it comes to BIMSTEC, there is more cohesion. Yes, there is better cohesion. What else? Yes. Okay, we'll come to that point. But before that, now in continuation with this point, that there is distrust in SARC, whereas there is cohesion in BIMSTEC. What is the reason? The reason is that SARC suffers from what is known as huge asymmetries. SARC suffers from huge asymmetries. Yes, one of the biggest reason for failure of SARC is the extraordinary size of India. Be it in terms of population, be in terms of geographical area, economic size, military size. India is said to be a humongous nation, represents 298-pound gorilla. Yes, compared to other smaller 90-pound gorillas. That is the comparison. So the primary reason for failure of SARC, or because why distrust prevails within SARC, is because of this asymmetry. One country is hugely large than the other countries. Yes, so it is obvious that the other countries would be distrustful of this large country, है ना? Extreme asymmetry, which is not present in any other region for that matter, है ना? अगर EU में भी देखो, France and Germany balance each other out, है ना? ASEAN में भी you have comparable countries such as Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, yes, Thailand also one of the important countries. So while there is asymmetry in case of SARC, but in case of BIMSTEC, there is balance of power because of presence of both India as well as Thailand. Yes, there is this balance of power that is established because of presence of these two countries, India and Thailand in BIMSTEC. Yes. So these are some of the dissimilarities. You can also talk about while South Asia, this SARC focuses on South Asia. You find BIMSTEC is focusing on the Bay of Bengal region. It draws the regional entity from Bay of Bengal, whereas SARC draws its identity from South Asia. Yes. So that can be said. Malacca Strait. Bay of Bengal itself is important. Bay of Bengal वो हम importance में लिख देंगे. Otherwise, what you can write that SARC का one of the incidences of failure of SARC क्या है कि regional integration is very less. And what is the fact that we gave to show regional integration? That the regional trade remains stagnant at 5%, and it has been so for now many years. Whereas BIMSTEC has achieved a 6% of inter-regional trade within a decade. So there is a fast progress as far as inter-regional trade. वहाँ का biggest problem, India-Pakistan rivalry completely stagnates, SARC. Yes, here there is progress as far as inter-regional trade is concerned. Bullying brother, yes. The bullying big brother, that is India's image. But India says, India क्या कहता है? We are not bullying big brother, we are the elder brother. Yes, yes. Comparable size, relatively comparable size. ठीक है, तो इस वजह से that is the reason. There is a economically emerging economies. Thailand was also, Thailand का problem है political instability, but otherwise it is an emerging economy. In fact, BIMSTEC was formed by India to replace Pakistan with Thailand, and also another emerging economy which can help in development of the member countries of this region. Yes, so these are sufficient dissimilarities, 4 or 5 dissimilarities that you cite would do. Yes, the next part of the question is, how are Indian foreign policy objectives realized by forming this new organization? अब उन्होंने कह दिया this new organization, तो आप mention कर देना. Forming this new organization, तो mention when was it formed? It was formed in 1997, and if you know, through Bangkok Declaration. Yes, so it was formed then, and it is critical for India in realizing its foreign policy objectives. First and foremost, it will help India realize its foreign policy goals of neighborhood first policy as well as Act East. Yes, Act East policy. So it will help. Formation mentioned है, इसीलिए you mention formed in 1997. That if you take these nuances into consideration, you write an answer which is completely in line with the question that is asked. Yes, only then you write such an answer. ठीक है, उसके बाद क्या है, फॉरेन पॉलिसी ऑब्जेक्टिव्स के लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है नेबरहुड फर्स्ट एंड एक्ट ईस्ट पॉलिसी. Yes, what else? Yes, you will in fact mention Sagar, because है ना, इसका आइडेंटिटी क्या है, बिम्स्टेक का बे ऑफ बंगाल सराउंडिंग है ना, तो यू फाइंड कंट्रीज है ना, एंड बे ऑफ बंगाल क्या है, बे ऑफ बंगाल इज सेड टू लिंक इंडियन ओशन टू द पैसिफिक ओशन. So today in the larger vision of Indo-Pacific also, Bay of Bengal becomes important. Bay of Bengal is also important as far as economic resources is concerned. It is an economic resource rich region. यहाँ पे energy resources हैं, and energy security is also one of the foreign policy objectives of India. So that can also be met through BIMSTEC. है ना, Myanmar से natural gas import करना, oil import करना, it all helps us in our foreign policy objective of energy security. So what all we are mentioning, energy security और Indo-Pacific वाला concept है ना, Indian Ocean and yes, so you can say that BIMSTEC helps India reach out to Southeast Asia. So BIMSTEC in fact can be said that it is a bridge for South Asian countries to Southeast Asian countries. Yes, it acts as a bridge between South Asia and Southeast Asia, and of course BIMSTEC is important. And Myanmar के context में we say that importance, that Northeast India is landlocked, so it provides sea access to Northeast India and a shorter route. It helps India overcome its chicken's neck dilemma. And a chicken's neck dilemma refers to the narrow Siliguri corridor, which links mainland India with Northeast India. If that chicken's neck is blocked, then our link to Northeast India will be choked. Yes, so Indian government has a security dilemma, and therefore we want permanent trade and transit right through Bangladesh. Yes, and Myanmar is also very, very important in that context. Yes, it provides scope of development to Northeast India. The fourth point you can mention as Sagar. Yes, security and growth for all in the region is the vision of Government of India in the Indian Ocean region. So Sagar is the vision of Government of India in the Indian Ocean region. Yes. Yes. You can also include this chicken's neck dilemma. By acting as a bridge, yes, by acting as a bridge of South Asia to Southeast Asia through India's northeast, yes, it can help overcome India's chicken's neck dilemma. And there are such dilemmas, just as Malacca Strait dilemma is, to overcome the Malacca Strait dilemma is foreign policy objective of China. Similarly, to overcome this dilemma also happens to be India's foreign policy objective. Yes, so you find that it fulfills all these foreign policy goals of India, and therefore this organization is important. Yes, now we have said only good things about BIMSTEC. We have said that how will it help. So अभी आप conclusion ही करोगे, क्योंकि there is no more scope. Already 3 parts we have written the answer, है ना? 3 in fact 4, अगर introduction का भी वो context पूरा explain किया है हमने अच्छे से. So 4 parts we have already written. Now we will directly get into conclusion. But how will you conclude? अभी तक हमने सिर्फ अच्छी बातें बताई है. Yes, अभी तक हमने सिर्फ अच्छी बातें बताई है with respect to BIMSTEC. So what will you conclude? देखो, we have to first talk about in context of SARC and BIMSTEC. If you bring in China and SDG, we are somewhere losing out on our focus on SARC and BIMSTEC. You have to conclude in line with the question. ठीक है. अभी what I was, where we were exactly, we were talking about the, है ना, the positives of BIMSTEC, how BIMSTEC is going to help us. So you always try and balance it out. Yes. So in the conclusion itself, we will mention that BIMSTEC also suffers from certain challenges. Comma करके एक दो challenge लिखना है. Resource crunch. Yes. Leadership challenge, है ना. अभी तक India has shown interest, but it has not completely taken up the leadership mantle. Yes, it was ignored for a very, very long time. है ना. Irregular summits इसका पहले एक challenge था. So maybe inability to sign out and free trade agreement till date. Yes, so you can, है ना, resource crunch, leadership challenge. You can the secretariat is there, but the secretariat also faces human resource crunch. Fine, so you can just say that it is not free of challenges. It also faces challenges such as resource crunch and leadership challenge. But then it is an important organization. And in fact, both organizations, SARC and BIMSTEC, will we accept that BIMSTEC is an alternative of SARC? हम क्या कह लेंगे कि हाँ चलो replace करते? नहीं, we will never say that. है ना, जब तक officially government नहीं कह दे कि that is the case for us, we will not say that BIMSTEC can be an alternative. We will say that both are important. Yes, so yes, SARC has suffered from challenges, but SARC is important to carry forward regional cooperation. जो आप, है ना, one of you were telling me that it represents a regional identity, a homogeneous region, and therefore there is a greater scope of cooperation under it, while BIMSTEC also suffers from challenges. So the way forward would be to carry these two organizations, trying to revive SARC while carrying forward with BIMSTEC. Yes, so that will be our conclusion. Yes. Are we concluding in a pessimistic way? There can be. There is, in fact, है ना? Yes, yes, because of the influence of China as well. See, we can, but then there is no problem. You can conclude in umpteen number of ways, and conclusion has to be positive. First of all, conclusion we never conclude on a pessimistic line. Okay, so your conclusion is also valid, saying that BIMSTEC will help India in realizing its goals. Yes, so that conclusion is valid. But then, if you just give that conclusion, what about SARC? The question was about comparison between these two organizations. Do not forget SARC in your conclusion. Bring in the element of SARC as well. Now, by bringing in both these organizations, if you are able to conclude in any positive manner, that is acceptable. Yes, you have to create a win-win situation. We will have to justify. We will not be blind to the challenges that is presently facing SARC. SARC is under existential threat, है ना? It is said that SARC presently is undergoing existential dilemma because no summit since 2014. Yes, and anyways, it did not have sufficient achievements to bank upon. So it is in that context, that is a fact. But then we need to revive that organization. On that line only we'll conclude. And BIMSTEC is very, very important to us. Yes. Yes, you can do that. You can, that is a valid way. And what he has said is also a valid way to conclude. Ki what India has failed to achieve in case of SARC, है ना, because of प्राइमरी रीजन यहाँ पे बोलेंगे इंडिया पाकिस्तान राइवलरी, जो हमने चलो मेंशन कर ही दिया है. सो वी कैन ट्राई एंड अचीव इट through BIMSTEC. Having said that, you will also talk about, you will not, by if you just conclude on that line, it seems that you are accepting that SARC is dead and we are not interested in SARC. We don't want to give that impression. We want to say that no, SARC is also important and we want to revive SARC. That is fine. Your idea is fine. That and carrying ahead with sectoral cooperation, which was not possible under SARC, and sectoral cooperation under BIMSTEC, we can maybe achieve greater heights. But then the fact of the matter is, BIMSTEC has also not achieved much. It is only because when SARC went dead, only then India shifted its focus to BIMSTEC. Otherwise, BIMSTEC was also a stagnant organization. So for us, we will conclude, yes, we will say that BIMSTEC is important. BIMSTEC के अंदर achievements हो सकते हैं, but also, that is the point I'm trying to make, that also with respect to SARC, talk about its revival. Maybe in a sentence only, but talk about its revival. Do not show that you have lost interest in SARC completely. Yes, so that is the idea. So both के लिए positive. Until and unless government of India says that SARC is a futile body, we are no longer interested. That they are indicating, but they are not telling it out loud. So till the time they do not tell it out loud, we will carry on with the idea that both are important, both need to be revived. In fact, BIMSTEC का guiding principle है ना, जो BIMSTEC का one of the principles of BIMSTEC is that it will not be an alternative to SARC or any other regional organization, regional treaty for that matter. So when its guiding principle is such, we cannot adopt a position that yes, BIMSTEC is an alternative to SARC. Fine. I hope everybody is clear. Fine. Moving ahead, the next question. So this is the 19th question. Yes, so the 19th question reads, how will I2U2 grouping transform India's position in global politics? How will I2U2 grouping transform India's position in global politics? Yes. ठीक है, excellent. We will start with the introduction. That way I2 U2 के बारे में ही बात करके शुरू करेंगे. But coming to the question once, yes, can you tell me the key words of the question? एक तो I2 U2 है ना, I2 U2 grouping. How will it transform India's position in global politics? The key word here क्या है? Transform. ये की वर्ड है. अगर आंसर में ये पोर्शन पे एम्फसाइज नहीं किया ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन का, योर आंसर वुड नॉट एड्रेस द क्वेश्चन आस्क्ड. Most of the students, the tendency would be in a hurry. What you would do, how is I2 U2 grouping important in India's positioning in global politics? You will write an answer on that. So you will write an answer on significance of I2 U2. But the question is, how will it transform India's position? That means you will have to say what is the present position and how it is going to transform it. Yes, the question is that. So one word making a huge difference in the answer that you will be writing. Yes, so the key word here is in fact transformation. So yes, that is the key word and that has to be focused upon. You will tell about the current position and then how will it change India's position in global politics. Now, how will you introduce? Yes, you will introduce through, and introduction will be, यहाँ पे क्या होगा introduction? Yes, तो recent summit बताएंगे. इसमें अभी बस एक I2 U2 का general introduction होगा, है ना, तो उसी में हम summit भी बताएंगे. तो हम पहले बताएंगे I2 U2 comprises these 4 countries and it was formed recently. It was formed in October 2021 when the foreign ministers of the 4 countries met. Yes, and it is in July 2022 when the first leaders summit, और the first summit का मतलब ही होता है leaders summit. Leaders मिलते हैं ना, head of government, head of state मिलते हैं. तो first leaders summit took place. Yes, we will also talk about, they have identified 6 sectors. They put forth themselves as an economic bloc. Yes, they are saying that they represent an economic bloc. Yes, and they have identified 6 areas of cooperation. Yes, which are these 6 areas of cooperation? Food security, energy, health, space. Yes, so it is energy, food security, health, space, water, and transportation. Yes, food security, health, water, energy, space, and transportation. So these are the 6 identified areas of cooperation. तो हो गया ये हमारा introduction sufficient है. अब इसके बाद question है, how will it transform India's image in global politics? Now in such a question you want, या तो आप सीधा subhead दे दो, how will it transform India's image in global politics? Subhead दे दिया. या you will have to give an interlinking statement. Yes, so as to ensure a smooth flow. So if you can give an interlinking statement, so I want to give the shortest interlinking statement possible, and we do not want to get into details too much. Words we do not want to waste there. So we can say that one of its significance or its primary significance for India would be that it will transform India's role in global politics. Yes, so it is in continuity. That is my linking statement. And then I will talk about how will it transform India's role in global politics. Yes, now this is where what is important. यहाँ पे पूरा आंसर इसी पे है. How will it transform India's role in global politics? So it will increase India's role in West Asia. पहले है ना. अच्छा, इसमें introduction में you will also, it is important if you mention Abraham Accords, क्योंकि Abraham Accords which paved the way for normalization of the relations. Yes, normalization of the relations between Arab and Israel has led to forming of this organization. Had it not been for Abraham Accords, इजराइल एंड यूएई का रिलेशन ही कभी नॉर्मलाइज नहीं होता है ना, तो फिर देयर वुड नॉट हैव बीन द पॉसिबिलिटी ऑफ I2U2. Yes, so Abraham Accords, it is one of the key outcomes of Abraham Accords. Yes, fine. Coming back to how it transforms India's role in international politics. First, it increases India's role in West Asia. Yes, so now अब हम पहला क्या कहाँ पे है इंडिया वो बताएंगे before we talk about transformation. So what is India's present role? India is one country which generally does not believe in participating in geopolitics. Geopolitics of West Asia. West Asia represents a politically volatile region, and we do not want to be part of the generally India has been reluctant to be part of the West Asian geopolitics because we want to secure, yes, we want to secure our energy needs and security of diaspora. है ना, हमारा large diaspora in West Asia. In fact, for the longest time, India's relation with West Asia was dictated by energy security and remittances, जो diaspora भेजते हैं, है ना. So we will say that we have been reluctant because our interest lies here, and therefore India's approach to this region was to pursue bilateral ties. Therefore, India's approach to this region was pursuit of bilateral relations. Yes. But under I2U2 क्या हुआ है? For the first time, we have entered into a minilateral. Yes, for the first time, India enters into a minilateral with respect to this region. Yes, so for the first time, India has become a participant in a minilateral with respect to this region. Yes, also how our role in West Asia and the global politics stands to change. We will talk about how India has been reluctant with respect to all the other three countries who are part of I2U2, is with respect to Israel, with respect to UAE, and with respect to US in West Asia. We have been reluctant with respect to all these three countries. Yes, in West Asia. Yes, now tell about the reluctance, है ना. तो पहले इजराइल के साथ क्या है? We were one of the earliest countries to recognize Israel, but it took us 42 years before we accorded it diplomatic recognition, है ना. Diplomatic relations establish करने में हमें 42 years लग गए. उसके बाद भी we find that under UPA government there was continuing ideological reluctance to participate or to be seen too close to Israel, and therefore the relations were under the closet. That is the phrase that we use for India-Israel relation, that India-Israel relations have been under the closet, inside the closet for quite some time, only taken out by the recent NDA government. So generally whenever BJP comes into power, it emphasizes on India-Israel relations. So it was also during Atal Bihari Vajpayee time and now also under the Modi time. Yes. So we find that it is only under now PM Modi or NDA, BJP-led NDA government that the relations are out of the closet. Yes. Also with respect to UAE, UAE के साथ क्या problem है? तो ये कह सकते हैं कि इसको at times it is also referred to as West Asian Quad. इंट्रोडक्शन में कह सकते थे, या तो कंक्लूजन में भी कह सकते हो या इंट्रोडक्शन में भी कह सकते हो, नो प्रॉब्लम. सेकंड क्या है? यूएई. यूएई के साथ हमारा क्या इशू था, है ना. यूएई के साथ हमारा इशू ये था कि हम हमेशा से अरब मोनार्कीज, we have been very reluctant to pursue relation with Arab monarchies because they have a pro-Pakistan stand vis-a-vis Kashmir. Yes, and therefore our relations were limited. Only recently we have concluded CEPA, yes, with UAE in a record number of 83 odd days. Yes, and also with respect to US in West Asia, we could never see eye to eye. With respect to US agenda in West Asia, India has always been suspicious with respect to USA's role in West Asia. Yes, but now under I2U2, you find that India is cooperating with all these three countries itself to increase its role in West Asia. Yes, so there is this transformation. Earlier we were reluctant with respect to these three, but now we are under I2U2 trying to build our relation with West Asian countries through these three countries. Yes, then what else? It also increases the scope of India-US relation. Now we are going to cooperate beyond the Indo-Pacific into West Asia as well. So that is also increase in India's role in global politics. Yes, also India's role as a balancer of power. It increases India's credential as balancer of power in the region. Yes, it increases India's credential as balancer of power in the region. Fine. And the last point, though this, the fifth point, though we are saying that this is an economic bloc, but then there is a strategic motive to it. They want to reduce the scope of Chinese involvement in West Asia. Yes, therefore, through this I2U2, we will be able to contain China in West Asia. Yes, and thereby transform India's role in global politics. ठीक है, तो once again, now this is the main question that was asked. So we have described it in detail कि how it will transform. पहला का position और नया position साथ साथ बताते गए हम. Yes, but now we have spoken only good things about I2U2. So these are the positives as far as India's participation in I2U2. But there must be some challenge as well. If there is, we can mention it. So one of the challenge that is there is that except India, the other three countries of I2U2 are anti-Iran countries. They have anti-Iran agenda. But Iran is a very important country to India, especially in context of also containing China continentally. And in terms of energy security and containing China continentally. जैसे रशिया हमारे लिए, US हमारे लिए maritime balancing of China के लिए important है. Russia is important for continental balancing of China. Similarly, Iran is also important for continental balancing of China. So there is this country with whom our strategic partnership is important, but rest three countries of this grouping are anti-Iran. So it might just create pressure on India to adopt anti-India, anti-Iran agenda. Yes, but then we are not sure. We are just speculating it. So in the conclusion, you will say, but anyways, as of now, it is an important organization. It is an economic bloc, and participation in which, India's partnership in which is going to transform India's role in global politics. Yes, and with this we will conclude. Conclusion में हमेशा कोशिश करो और throughout the answer always try and use the words from the question itself. So conclusion, one of the shortcuts of the conclusion is always concluding on the line of the question asked. So the examiner gets a feeling that you have written an answer, yes, in line with the question that was asked. Yes, so your answer is completely relevant to the question that was asked. Yes, so these are the ways to keep your answer in line with the question. Yes, so that way you can conclude. Fine, everybody is clear with the structure, no problem. Yes, structuring is very, very important. Once you learn the art of structuring and you have revised your notes enough, you will be able to manage through the answers. Now, would current affairs have been sufficient? And could you have written comprehensive answers through simply reading of current affairs? You could have never written comprehensive answers. Yes, answers require you to analyze, and that analysis, transformation, वो भी बहुत smart लोग हैं जो UPSC वाले will not, है ना, they do not want to reduce your burden of studies so much that just current affairs से question पूछ लो, है ना, that they'll not do. Yes, so they want to gauge your personality, they want to understand your analytical skills. Yes, because you are wanting to be future administrators. So they want to see, are you a logical person? Are you able to look at an issue from all dimension, all perspective, and a holistic understanding of the subject is present or not? Because these are your credentials which will be useful in your future job. Yes, so that has to be represented through your answer. Therefore, not simply answering question, इंडियाज रोल इन श्रीलंकन क्राइसिस, तो उसको 1 2 3 4 5 करके नहीं लिखना, उसको पूरा लिखना है हमें, है ना, in line with, so as to show that you have a holistic understanding of what the issue is, what is India's role. We will bring the China element, we will try and in answer whenever possible, compare and contrast always gives a very good impression. Yes, contextualize, always good. Yes, so that is how you go about. Fine. The last question, I think so, the most troublesome question. Yes, this question was the question which troubled a lot of students. Let us get to it now. See if we can write a good answer on it. The last question was, clean energy is the order of the day. Clean energy is the order of the day. Yes. Describe briefly India's changing policy towards climate change. Describe briefly yes, India's changing policy, India's changing policy towards climate change in various international fora in context of geopolitics. Fine. So this is the question that has been given. Yes. Clean energy is the order of the day. Describe briefly India's changing policy towards climate change in various international fora in context of geopolitics. Yes, let's first understand the keywords. First, this question also begins with a statement. So we know how to introduce. The introduction will be substantiation of the given statement. Yes, so first is clean energy is the order of the day. Okay, my introduction is done there. Then it says describe briefly India's changing. Yes, so we have to talk about how India's policy with regards to climate change has changed. Yes, so describe briefly India's changing policy towards climate change. Question does not get over here. It continues in various international fora and in context of geopolitics. Yes, now we need to write an answer to it. Yes, first, what is, let me go directly to the first statement. Let's substantiate the statement and then we'll come down to the question that is asked. So the question, the statement reads, clean energy is the order of the day. Yes, now what do we mean by this? Clean, देखो ये अब difference है, देखो. Clean energy is not necessarily renewable energy. Renewable energy generally is clean energy. लेकिन hydroelectric power है ना, वो अब contested है. उसको हमने क्या कहा है, कितना hydroelectric power clean है, जब तक 25 megawatts तक उससे produce हो डैम से, तब तक वो clean है. उसके beyond, because dam construction है, ecology destruction है ना, deforestation, submergence of land, so है ना, therefore all renewable sources are not in fact clean energy. Clean energy का मतलब क्या है? Green energy. Clean energy मतलब green. Sustainable. Clean energy, अगर सिर्फ clean energy का बताएं clearly, clean energy means an energy in whose production there is no greenhouse gas emission, in whose utilization there is no greenhouse gas emission. Yes, so clean energy refers to that energy whose production as well as consumption does not result into greenhouse gas emission. So energy whose production and consumption does not result into greenhouse gas emissions. Yes, so that is clean energy. Under clean energy, see, ये आप logically बता सकते हो. अभी for your information, clean energy also involves the energy that has been conserved through efficient utilization of energy. So the energy conserved is the energy produced. ऐसे करके एक slogan है ना. So that is what. So clean energy also involves the energy which has been saved through efficient utilization of energy. Yes. So how am I going to introduce? I'll first explain clean energy. Clean energy is the order of the day. So एक line में I will give the explanation of clean energy. Now, why is it the order of the day? है ना, I have to substantiate. तो मुझे पहले तो fact देना पड़ेगा to show that yes, it is the order of the day. फिर उसके बाद मुझे reason देना पड़ेगा कि yes, because of this reason it is the order of the day. तो what are the fact that clean energy is the order of the day? So much emphasis on solar energy, wind energy, electric vehicles. Yes, all these are representative of clean energy. So a lot of emphasis is being given presently on solar, wind energy. Yes, electric vehicles. You can talk also about SDG, Sustainable Development Goal 7. Sustainable Development Goal 7 talks about the aim is access to affordable clean energy. Aim is access to affordable clean energy. Yes. So I have given the fact saying that yes, it is the order of the day. सब कुछ आजकल solar, wind and electric vehicles के ऊपर चल रहा है ना? And reason why it has become the order of the day? Because climate change is causing existential threat to mankind and life as we know on planet Earth. Yes, so it is causing existential threat. And abhi there was the calls of warning given even by UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, and he had said that we are running out of time. There is no time to but now to act, because otherwise we are threatening human survival. Yes, so basically why? Because climate change is causing existential threat to mankind and life as we know it. Fine, because of this, clean energy has become the order of the day. वो तो हमेशा से हो रहा है, वो तो we will talk about that, but है ना वो that has been going on since 1992. So for quite some time it has been going on. Of course we will discuss, because there only our change is reflected. Yes. Next comes the question, describe briefly India's changing policy towards climate change. Simple है ये तो, चलो. उसके बाद क्या, in various international fora, ठीक है, various international fora, in context of geopolitics. Now what is this context of geopolitics? Yes, what is this context of geopolitics? Carbon credits geopolitics नहीं है, mechanism है ना, mechanism, various CDM वगैरह अलग अलग mechanisms है. The geopolitics in, देखो world, जब international politics पढ़ते हैं तो there are two debates that we refer to. One is the North-South debate. North-South debate is referred to when we talk about development. जब हम world trade, WTO, development वगैरह की बात करते हैं, so we talk about the so-called North-South debate. Yes. The other debate is the East-West debate. Yes. And when do we talk about the East-West debate? When it is about climate change. Whenever we are talking about environment, we talk in terms of the East-West debate. So this is the geopolitics that we are referring to. Yes, in context of the existing geopolitics, this is. अगर ठीक है, general geopolitics जब भी climate change के ऊपर आएगा वो होगा East-West debate. Fine, that is done. Second point under geopolitics, जो आज के दिन we can talk about, is this idea of critical minerals. You are aware? Yes. So whatever, be it electric vehicles, be it the solar panels, we will discuss. Yes, right now what we are talking about, critical minerals. Critical minerals is essential for production of कुछ भी हो, electric vehicles हो, solar panels हो, या wind turbines हो, you need critical minerals. One of them is lithium. Yes, so critical minerals are very, very essential today for modern everyday life, and as well as for the clean energy, green energy. Yes, and India has identified 49 such critical minerals, है ना, more or less world भी agree करता है 49 such critical minerals, of which 16 such critical minerals का leading producer कौन है? China है. China with global power ambition. ठीक है, और हमारा ambition क्या है, हमारा foreign policy goal क्या है? We do not want China to become the global power. So we say our foreign policy ambition is that multipolar world with multipolar Asia. हम उसको बहुत smartly put करते हैं, multipolar world with multipolar Asia at its core. Yes, most of the countries in the world का यही है. अब दूसरा, एक तो वो hegemon बनना चाहता है, and then critical minerals which are becoming the next oil and even more critical than oil. Is 16 of those critical minerals का leading producer is China. Second, China is known for being a disruptor to freedom of trade, है ना, rules को follow नहीं करता, freedom of navigation उसने कई बार disrupt किया है. Yes, so you find that the world is now working towards supply chain resilience, that supply chains should be established so that critical minerals का supply is not hampered. Now, if India enters into a border conflict with China, if there's an ongoing border conflict, China might stop the export of critical minerals to India. So it will choke Indian economy. In fact, China had done this with Japan. है ना, उनका सेंकाकू आइलैंड पे conflict है, and सेंकाकू इस बार question भी आया था, तो सेंकाकू पे जो conflict है, so at one point in 2012, I guess, China had banned the export of rare earth minerals, जो critical minerals का हिस्सा है, rare earth minerals to Japan, and Japan was extremely dependent on rare earth minerals, choking Japan's economy. So we do not want such situation to arise, and therefore we are working towards resilient supply chains of critical minerals. India has entered into agreements with US, Australia with regards to it, to ensure, है ना, काबिल वगैरह हमने establish किया है ना, to ensure critical minerals ka resilient supplies. So it is in these two contexts we can talk about the changing policy of India in terms of climate change. Primary discussion will always be in this context, lekin recent में critical minerals very critical to clean energy, therefore, and China factor is there, so we will include that point. Yes. Now let us get into the question that is asked. The question says, briefly discuss India's changing policy. So we give an introduction of why clean energy is the order of the day. Reason, fact, we have given everything. Now next we get into India's changing policy towards climate change. So here you will start by talking about the 1972 Stockholm Conference. Yes, it was in this conference for the first time India had indicated the link between development and environment. Yes, India indicated this link between development and environment. India said that there cannot be protection of the environment in a state of poverty. So we cannot work towards, no country can work towards protection of the environment in a state of poverty. Yes, so this link was established. And then on, India has been one country which has always emphasized upon the principles of equity, historic responsibility, and per capita emissions to be the basis of differentiation of responsibility. Yes, so whenever it has come to climate change, we have always said we need to bring in the element of justice, and India has always emphasized on these three principles: equity, historical responsibility, and per capita emission, to be the basis of differentiation of responsibility of the countries involved. And it was because of such emphasis of India that you find that in 1992, when UNFCCC, yes, UN Framework Convention on Climate Change was adopted, it adopted the principle of common but differentiated responsibility and respective capabilities. Yes, so this principle itself was adopted because of India's emphasis on these three principles. Yes, and you find that this was very well accepted, and its concretization was seen in terms of Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol, under which the industrialized countries, yes, the industrialized countries were given legally binding quantified targets to reduce the carbon intensity of their GDPs. Yes, and developing countries were not given any such targets. Yes, developing country taking any such action was dependent on the funds and the technology transfer by the developed countries. Yes, so this was India's stand, which continued for some time. Yes, for the longest time this was India's stand. However, there is a stark change in India's approach in 2009 in the Copenhagen summit. In the Copenhagen summit, या Copenhagen COP. Yes, so the Copenhagen COP, you find that, which was held in 2009, there is a shift in India's stand whereby India announces quantified but legally non-binding national pledge to reduce the carbon intensity of its economy. So India is, what it is announcing? A national pledge, quantified but legally non-binding. Yes, so for the first time, India is willing to take up quantified responsibility in terms of reducing the carbon intensity of its economy, along with China. Both these countries undertake such a pledge. Now, what is the reason for change in approach of India? Reason was India wanted to show to the world that we are a responsible global power. We are a responsible global power. Plus, it is clear that climate change is going to affect India adversely. So India wants to do whatever it can do in its own capacity. It does not want to wait for the developed countries' assistance, rather do what it can in its own capacity. Therefore, India changes its approach whereby it announces for the first time quantified national pledges which are non-legally binding, which are not legally binding on India. Yes, and this approach, which changes from Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol was top-down approach. So UNFCCC बोल रहा है developed countries को कितना आपको reduce करना है अपना carbon intensity. From a top-down approach, we see a rise of a bottom-up approach whereby individual countries are taking up national pledges, and these national pledges are accumulated at the global level to see what is the end result we are getting in terms of carbon intensity reduction proposals. Yes, so this change in the entire paradigm of climate change negotiations, concretization of this approach at the global level takes place in the Paris Climate Change Agreement, or the Paris Climate Agreement after the Paris COP in 2015. In 2015. Yes. So this is the change in India's approach vis-a-vis climate change. First, we used to emphasize on principles of equity, historical responsibility, and per capita emission. Today, India emphasizes on equity and per capita emission. The idea of historical responsibility is somewhere not mentioned anymore. So you find with respect to the Paris climate change agreement or the Paris climate agreement, there is no mention of historic responsibility. Yes, so this mention has been dropped, and India, now previously we were waiting for the developed countries to take action and to provide us assistance for developing countries to take action. But now we no longer wait the financial as well as technological assistance from the industrialized or developed countries. We are taking whatever steps that we can in our own standing. Yes, here you can also talk, you can differentiate India's approach from China's approach. अभी दोनों ने क्वांटिफाइड एजेंडाज नेशनल प्लेजेस लिए हैं. यस, अभी रिसेंटली जो 2021 में the COP was held. In that we said our pledges that we want to achieve carbon neutrality by 2070 and 45% reduction in carbon intensity by 2045. Yes, on the other hand, China का क्या है? Carbon neutrality by 2060, but carbon peaking by 2030. So India says that we do not believe in this peaking approach. ये फिर consumerist approach है. This is a careless approach. So India believes in sustained reduction of carbon intensity and does not differentiates itself from the carbon peaking approach adopted by China. In fact, India has also, है ना, India का long standing position है कि our per capita emissions will never exceed that of industrialized countries, even when we take historical responsibility in context. Yes, so that is there. अगर सिर्फ हमारा question होता, if the question would have been limited to what has happened? India's changing policy towards climate change, our answer is done. We have told about changing India's foreign policy vis-a-vis climate change. We are done here, है ना? From earlier shift to emphasis on historical responsibility, those three developing countries not willing to take quantified pledges to taking quantified pledges, and now change in the entire approach, है ना? Our answer would have been complete, but the question continues. Question does not end there. The question is in various international fora, है ना? तो अब क्या हम करेंगे? हम दूसरे फोरास की भी बात करेंगे. एक तो UNFCCC का ही चला है पूरा डिस्कशन, है ना? तो नाउ वी विल टॉक अबाउट ISA, इंटरनेशनल सोलर अलायंस, वन सन one world, one grid. Yes, we will talk about such initiatives of India that India has taken. We will also talk about, yes, IPEF में भी कुछ कंक्रेटाइजेशन हुआ नहीं है, ठीक है? बस हम रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी ले रहे हैं क्लाइमेट चेंज की तरफ. देयर इज अ पिलर विच टॉक्स अबाउट इट, बट उसमें अभी कुछ हुआ नहीं है. ये सब चीज़ें अचीव हुई है. क्या क्या हुआ है? वी विल टॉक अबाउट India and France co-founded International Solar Alliance, yes, where we want to make affordable solar energy accessible to all. We will talk about this one sun, one world, one grid, yes, which was at the 26th COP. Abhi recent wale COP mein, it is a joint initiative of India, UK and ISA, International Solar Alliance, yes, which believes in increasing solar and wind power and through the electricity grid around the world. Yes, so it has to be a major component. Then we will talk about then we can talk about how in case of G20 also, India has argued that all the G20 countries should reduce their carbon emissions. Yes, carbon emissions to the global average. We should all bring it down to the global average by 2030 because fast depleting carbon space. Yes, this time is running out and there is no more carbon space in the atmosphere, है ना? Replenishing capacity के beyond हम carrying capacity के beyond हम carbon release कर रहे हैं in the atmosphere. So we will talk about these organizations. Yes, so these Indian initiatives we can talk about, and with that we can conclude the answer. Yes, you understand? So we are talking about UNFCCC, वहाँ पे हमने changing policy बता दिया. उसके beyond we can say that India no longer awaits the financial support and technological assistance from the developed world. It is taking actions on its own, as evident in International Solar Alliance co-founded by India and France, and the establishment of One Sun, One World and One Grid. Also, India has been insisting on emission reduction to combat climate change by amongst the all G20 countries reducing their carbon per capita emissions, bringing it down to the global average by 2030. Yes, fine. There is another organization which is quite important. We will also talk about. India has set up what is referred to as Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure. Yes, in 2019, India has set up, and it is a global partnership to promote resilient infrastructure systems to climate and disaster risks. Yes. So all these are Indian initiatives that we will talk. So these are Indian initiatives on various other international fora. And in context of geopolitics, अगर China वाला angle लाना चाहते हो, if you can bring, if you have time and scope, you can also say that critical minerals are essential as far as clean energy is concerned. And today, China, a revisionist power and a disruptor of rule of law, is the leading producer of 16 such minerals. Therefore, India is taking initiative with other countries such as US and Australia to ensure resilient supply chains vis-a-vis or resilient supply of the critical minerals. Fine. So these are Indian steps to ensure access to clean energy or to combat climate change. Yes. And how will you conclude? You will conclude by saying that India has adopted, there is this phrase that we use, co-benefit approach to tackling climate change crisis. India has adopted a co-benefit approach to tackling the climate change crisis. That means we seek to enhance India's energy security while at the same time dealing with the threat of climate change. तो क्लीन एनर्जी पे एम्फसाइज करके हम अपना एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी करेंगे और साथ ही साथ ग्रीन हाउस गैस एमिशंस कम करेंगे. सो इट इज़ अ को बेनिफिट अप्रोच विच सीक्स टू एनहांस इंडियाज एनर्जी सिक्योरिटी by emphasizing on clean energy and consequently dealing with reduction in the greenhouse gas emissions. Yes, that is how you will go about dealing with this question. Fine, any doubts? So this question also tells you current affairs is insufficient. I cannot emphasize it more. If you are a serious student who wants good result, do not limit yourself to current affairs studies. You never know. है ना, ये BIMSTEC और SAARC का discussion was as such not the ongoing discussion presently. अभी बस BIMSTEC का summit हुआ था. That was the only thing. But general question that you can expect from BIMSTEC is this comparison of BIMSTEC and SAARC. So that was asked. Yes. So this is a misconception. Generally, current affairs, what it will aid you? It will aid you in the direction in which you should study. These are the topics which are more important. But that does not mean that you do not study anything else. Yes, you forget. That does not mean that you completely neglect the basics of international relations. Very, very important. Its importance is rising day by day in the present globalized world, and your newspapers are an evidence of it. What are these days? हिंदू का एडिटोरियल रोज कम से कम एक एडिटोरियल तो आता है जो IR पे होता है, कई बार 2 आते हैं, कई बार 3 आते हैं. Yes. So what does this show? That international relations has become important in the present globalized world, the present world that we are living in. One country में कुछ होता है, पूरी दुनिया पे उसका impact है. इस वजह से we are in a globalized world. The world has become flat. There is time and space shrinking that has happened. Consequently, international relations has become very, very important. UPSC being a generalist paper, you will only see maybe the importance of IR increasing in the following years, not declining. So prelims as well as mains, it will be an important area from which questions might be asked. Generally, essay भी एक area था जहाँ पे IR से questions आते हैं. Yes. previously बहुत साल पहले है ना 10-15 years back it was a trend कि IR से there would be questions in essay. Now that trend subsided. Now they have started asking very general questions, but to substantiate those general questions at times they provide a very good fodder material, because how do you write essay on an extremely general topic? By making it tangible. You do not write an intangible essay. जितना intangible topic है उतना intangible आप ऐसे नहीं लिख के देते examiner को कि पढ़ो अब चलो मजे लो. You don't do that. Yes, you try and make that topic tangible because you want to show that you are an objective person. Yes, this is a UPSC exam that you are sitting in. You are not sitting for a philosophical exam कि चलो you have asked me a philosophical question, so I'll give you all the more philosophical answer. That is not what we do. We give tangible points to the philosophical topics, and there also your IR can serve as an important fodder. Yes, so prepare it well, and yes, my suggestion as far as your exams, your mains is concerned, most of you know this information. Maybe I'm just reiterating this information, but then it is so very important. Do not proliferate your sources. Do not start reading too much from too many sources. Limit your sources. Yes, 1 or 2 standard books for each subject. Your teachers will guide you. If you're self-studying, your seniors, and you would do the research, so you would know. So limit your sources, but what is most important? Revision, revision, revision. Only when you revise, you will be able to write answers. If you pay close attention to the questions that they have asked in your mains exam this year, it is not direct question. It is not the importance of I2, U2. It is about how it will help transform India's role in West Asia. That discussion you want to write. So you need a background of West Asia, है ना? That ability to use the information that is there and produce it, है ना? Inference पे question आ रहे हैं, है ना? Changing policy vis-a-vis the climate change. Yes, you find such question. Is BIMSTEC and चलो वो तो ongoing discussion था, BIMSTEC and SAARC being parallel. Similarities is also asked. Now what do you write similarities? Dissimilarities के तो फिर भी point होंगे, है ना? Your ability to know कि energy security is also a foreign policy goal, है ना? So nowhere within BIMSTEC का जब हम BIMSTEC पढ़ेंगे, nowhere do we write the importance of BIMSTEC in achieving foreign policy goals. Has so many goals. सिर्फ एक ही goal लिखते हैं कि it will help India achieve foreign policy goal vis-a-vis neighborhood first and the Act East policy. Beyond that, we write nothing. But here you have to write 5 points on it. So your presence of mind, and when you actually know the subject well, when you know your syllabus and your course well, only then you will be able to utilize information scattered across and put it there in the answer in that given time frame, है ना? Limited time frame में. Therefore, revision is very, very important. Nobody can overemphasize its importance, and you will get time to revise only when you have limited material. Otherwise, you will just read one book after the other and your time will be spent out. Yes? So, trust whatever source you are reading and limit yourself to that. Yes? Revise and re-revise. Make short notes. The way to study is writing and studying. That is how you remember things. Even if you will not be able to immediately revise before the exam, you will be able to recall better in the exam if you have put in that effort of writing and studying. Answer writing practice, once again, very, very, very important. Nobody can overemphasize it. Yes. So anyways, when you are most active, write answers. Also, when you do not feel like studying, you are very tired, you feel like you want a break that day. Maybe on that day, look at previous year's question. Pick up any questions that you might find online or otherwise, है ना? Test series वगैरह कुछ भी, जो भी होता है, जो भी sources है. Your teachers might have told you some question, whatever it be. Yes, go through the questions, try and write answer on it. If you are not writing answer, initially you have to write answers, full answers you have to write. After a point, you will reach a stage where structuring would suffice. Yes, so answer writing, maybe in an exam like setup would do, and the rest at home, structurizing the answer. Yes, which are the parts in which I will address this question that is asked. That has to be done. Yes, if you do that, if you put in the required amount of hard work, yes, we know UPSC is difficult. इट गिव्स यू जिटर्स, यस, बहुत बार टेंशन हो जाता है, टेंशन इतना हो जाता है कि डिस्ट्रेस हो जाता है, यू कैन नॉट स्टडी, but at the end remember hard work is always paid off, and if you do the right hard work, that is the smart work, hard work plus smart work, you will get results. One way or the other you will get results. So with that positive attitude, go ahead and prepare. Yes, and of course you will be able to do well in the exam. Yes, thank you. Any queries that you have? देखो तरीक अब वो एडिटोरियल्स ज़्यादातर आईआर पे आते हैं. अब नाउ द वे टू गो अबाउट इज रीड एन इशू होलिस्टिकली. तो अगर आपने एक इशू पे, है ना, आपको पता है कि अब ये इशू मोर और लेस कवर्ड हो गया है ना, दिस वॉर हैज एंडेड एंड मोर और लेस दिस इज द सिचुएशन, एंड यू हैव रेड 3 or 4 articles on it, that means you have got the gist, because at the end you have to write 15 marker question maximum, in which you will write 5 or 6 points with respect to a certain aspect. So if you have 4-5 articles and you have come out on a certain topic with 4-5 heads, and within those 4-5 heads you have 4-5 topics which you can count on your fingertips. Yes, the topics has to be such, points has to be such very precise, जो आप फिंगर टिप्स पे काउंट करोगे. अगर वैसे पॉइंट्स बन गए हैं देन यू आर डन विद दैट. सो उसके बाद आपको रोज बिल्कुल रिगरसली उसी टॉपिक पे एडिटोरियल पढ़ने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. देन यू कैन हैव एन ओवरव्यू एंड स्किप थ्रू. यस, बट कहाँ पे आपको पहुँचना है, जब वो गोल पहुँच गए कि एक टॉपिक पे 4-5 हेड है और 4-5 हेड के अंदर 4-5 पॉइंट अंडर ईच हेड है, पॉइंट्स विच यू काउंट ऑन योर फिंगर टिप्स, है ना, डू दैट. दैट विल बी टू मच. अभी मैं वो तो पूरा सिर्फ इंडिया जापान क्या इंडिया नेपाल ही नहीं है ना, देर आर सो मेनी. अभी इंडिया नेपाल के कंटेक्स्ट में इफ आई टेल यू इन इंडिया नेपाल कंटेक्स्ट, इंडिया नेपाल का सबसे इम्पॉर्टेंट है यू अंडरस्टैंड द नेचर ऑफ द रिलेशन. इंडिया नेपाल का रिलेशन का नेचर क्या है ना, इट इज state to state relations is weak, it is people to people ties which are strong. So we have unprecedented closeness but the relation continue to be fraught with challenges. तो वही है कि पीपल टू पीपल टाइज बहुत अच्छे हैं, स्टेट टू स्टेट वीक है, तो वो समझना क्यों हैं, उसके फैक्ट्स एविडेंसेस समझना. उसके बाद जो चैलेंजेस है, चैलेंजेस क्या है हमारे रिलेशन में, टेरिटोरियल डिस्प्यूट है, हाइड्रो पावर सेक्टर कोऑपरेशन है, चाइना इन नेपाल है, यस, एथनिक क्राइसिस, जो उनका कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल क्राइसिस एंड इंडियाज रोल, वो एक कॉन्ट्रोवर्शियल था हमारा. यस, so these are the heads under which and the treaty, the peace and friendship treaty that was signed between these two countries in 1950, वो भी controversial है. So those 5 topics are the controversial topics. Otherwise you have to understand the nature, हमारा foreign policy क्या है with respect to Nepal, and this nature that we have strong people to people ties but weak state to state ties. Yes, so that has to be done. So you should know that, and वो तो फिर जो current affairs आ रहा है वो substitute होगा. Otherwise, है ना, नोट्स मत बनाओ न्यूज़पेपर से ज़्यादा, बहुत ज़्यादा पॉसिबल नहीं होता. उतने नोट्स बनाओ जितना आप रिवाइज कर सकोगे, है ना, दैट हैज़ टू बी द गोल. एंड यू, दैट इज़ एन आर्ट. फटाफट नोट्स बनाने का एक आर्ट होता है विच इफ़ यू कैन, है ना, डू इट. अदरवाइज there are current affairs magazines, do a good job while reading the newspaper, understanding the topic, getting a gist of it, है ना. 1 पॉइंटर नोट्स अगर आप कुछ बना सकते हो एक सेंटेंस में तो आपने बना लिया. एक टॉपिक का फ्लो चार्ट के कंटेक्स्ट में, है ना, यू शुड हैव अ फ्लो चार्ट इन माइंड. और उसके बाद बियॉन्ड दैट यू हैव करंट अफेयर्स मैगजीन्स दैट आर देयर अवेलेबल. किस तरह से, तो यही है, आपको थरो होना पड़ेगा. देयर इज नो शॉर्टकट. हमें क्या चाहिए होता है, हमें हर चीज़ का शॉर्टकट चाहिए होता है. और यूपीएससी एक एग्जाम है जो शॉर्टकट के अगेंस्ट काम करता है. जो भी आप शॉर्टकट निकालोगे वो अगले साल उसको बैकफायर कर देगा. सो अंटिल एंड अनलेस यू हैव कंसेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी एंड इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्ट्स इन हैंड्स, इफ यू हैव दैट यू विल बी एबल टू सेल थ्रू. ठीक है, तो दैट इज द वे. वो फ्लो चार्ट बनाना नहीं है आपको, आपको फ्लो चार्ट आपके दिमाग में होना चाहिए. फ्लो चार्ट नहीं बनाना एग्जाम में, है ना, वो तो समय नहीं है आपके पास. और वो अलग अलग सब्जेक्ट्स की ज़रूरत होती है. आईआर के कंटेक्स्ट में देयर इज़ नो नीड फॉर एनी फ्लो चार्ट एज सच. यस, what is required is that you try and attempt all the questions and divide equally the time. तो वो आप तभी कर पाओगे when you have practiced answer writing sufficiently. Yes? Fine. Anything else? Fine. I hope it is. It was a helpful session. Fine. Thank you. Thank you. All the very best for your exams. Thank you.